¿Quieres salvarlas? Léelo y a un alma reclamas. Al Padre generoso, ora y a muchas almas sanas. Tu donación, una misa para aquella tan amada.
I started fasting when I met Father Claudio. I met him at the end of December 2018, and I was having a lot of difficulties in my life. So on January 1st, as I was listening to the mass of the Pope, I said to God, I don't think I can do this, but I'm desperate. I want to try something different, and I was suffering a lot at that moment in my life. I was confronting a lot of difficult situations in my life. So I remember I made this pact with God. I said, Lord, I'm going to start this crazy 40-day fasting, but if you see that I'm going to die, stop it and make me eat. And so I started, and to my surprise, I was able to make it to day 40. And within those 40 days, I started January 1st, as I said. So we have one of the Gospels in January is the baptism of our Lord. And I remember when I went to Mass, the priest said, raise your hand if you know the date of your baptism. And I didn't know my date. So immediately I called Colombia. I'm from Colombia. So I called one of my sisters and I told her to get me my baptism certificate. And to my surprise, when I got it, my baptism was day number 40 of my fasting. So that was a gift from God. I cried of emotion when I found out the date because I thought it was a lot of mercy from God to give me that gift. So when I went to confession, I remember talking to the priest about it. And he said, well, you don't know what you're about to receive. That's one of the greatest gifts, what you're about to receive. And you didn't plan on that day, so you didn't even know the day of your baptism. So I'm sure that the Lord has many good things for you in the future. So that's how I started my first 40-day fasting. And I said to myself, if the Lord gave me this gift, I'm gonna do it for my two children. So I found out the date of their baptism, and I finished my first fasting on February 9th. So the following date was gonna be my daughter's baptism, which is in September, the day of Our Lady of Mercy. And so I did it for my daughter, and it was beautiful. We're talking about 2019. So I told her at the very, very end, I invited her to come to church with me on that day, and she did. And so we were celebrating Our Lady of Mercy, and it was, I don't know if it was the last time that my daughter went to church. Maybe she's gone after, but I don't remember much because she's a little bit distant from the church right now. But it was a beautiful gift that I was able to do it. And then, of course, the following day was gonna be for my son. that would end the day of St. John Don Bosco. So it was on January 31st. And so I did it, and it was beautiful. And with every fasting that came after, um, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's been a little bit more difficult every time. But with the help of God, I've been able to do it like once or twice a year, the 40-day fasting. And then I stay with the Wednesdays and Fridays. Um, Especially, after Medjugorje, after I was able to go and do a trip with Father Claudio and Nora, for 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 that trip. So it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I thought it was gonna be extremely hard, but no, it wasn't hard at the beginning. I started um, I studied with. I remember it was one of my coworkers. He's in heaven already, but he he used to fast every Friday of the whole year, like not eating meat, and he's the one that kind of inspired me. So I I didn't understand why he did it at that time. I was very distant from the church, but that's how I started, like not eating meat on Fridays. And then one for one Lent, I remember I love coffee, so I said, okay, I'm gonna try to do something different, because um, before I didn't really do sacrifices, but I remember my first 40-day sacrifice was not having coffee for Lent, and also praying the rosary, because I said I'm gonna do something, um, let's say something physical and something spiritual. So I did the 40-day without coffee and the 40-day of rosary. And then I fell in love with the rosary. I remember that I studied like probably a couple of years before I met Father Claudio. And so it was a process. And then after that, I studied with Wednesdays and Fridays. And then when I met him, that's when I studied the 40-day. Um, so it was a gradual invitation that the Lord was making for me. Um, Through the fasting, I have gotten a lot closer to the Lord. I think it's a beautiful journey where we um, go to mass every day and um, pray the Holy Rosary. Um, and I try to increase my adoration times as much as my job allows it. But it's been a true um, journey of getting closer and closer to the Lord. And in the year after the pandemic, um, I didn't know what was coming, but the Lord knew, and He prepared me, because I remember with Misión Ruah, when we go to feed the homeless, we started going to pray to the cemeteries, and I went, out of obedience. But like I say, I don't know what I was doing, but I started going, and I remember we went to at least 4 cemeteries, and a little bit after that, my son passed, and it was extremely difficult times. But I remember he passed in March, and I had done a fasting the same dates that I had done my first fasting. And I remember offering that fasting for me, because I hadn't offered a fasting for myself. So that fasting I offered for me, and I said to the Lord, Lord, shake me, change me, burn in me everything that separates me from you, um, restore me, renew me. I offer it for me, and I ended it with Saint Paul for the last 3 days, and I think it wasn't the first time that I did this, that I ended the 40-day with Saint Paul, but it was extremely strong. This time I felt very, very, very weak, to the point that I had to hold on to the rail going up and down the stairs of my house. And I remember having a extremely excruciating pain in my right shoulder, and I didn't know where that pain was coming from. It was so bad that sometimes I couldn't put on my bra, and I would just layer and layer and layer. Imagine in Miami, but to be able to go out and to work, so nobody would notice that I didn't have a bra, because I wasn't able to tolerate a bra. It was extremely difficult to drive. It was extremely difficult to even pulse the start button on my phone, because the pain was just so excruciating. And I, of course, after my son passed, I understood why I had so much pain in my right shoulder, and then the pain disappeared. And the Lord was preparing me for the weight of my cross. And it was like I said, a very difficult time. But if it wasn't for the fasting that I had done several times, since 2019. Like I said, in 2019, it was like two, and towards the end, I started the third fasting, and then in 2020, I probably did a couple. I remember in 2020, I got a phone call from Nora asking me to help one of the groups, one of the chats, and with the fasting. And I said, well, but I gotta start doing it, because I have to be fasting with them. And so I remember I did like a couple in that year, and then I started 2021 January 1st with the following fasting, and that's when my son um, left this world. And like I said, it was extremely difficult. Imagine, he was only 22, but the Lord carried me in His arms. He and the Virgin Mary, our mother, I felt very much her love and her comfort um, throughout those first months, especially the first months. And I remember in one of my conversations with one of my nieces, she's got some gifts, from God. She's able to see certain things. I don't know exactly what she says, but when my son passed and I had a conversation with her over the phone, she told me, Tia Patti, you have a lot of light over your head. I can tell that you're having a lot of protection from heaven, and there is a lot of grace over you right now. And again, like I said, I don't know what she was talking about, but I felt it. I felt it because I felt very strong. and and it was very hard for my daughter, and for the father of my children, because they're very distant from the church. So I could see their pain and I could see their suffering. Like, they were hopeless, they were in denial. I think to this day they're just accepting that my son departed from this life now, because of the lack of faith, because of the lack of the relationship with our Lord. So, but, like, God gave me the grace, um, to be able to carry my cross, and to be able to share my pain with others, and to actually thank Him, because I remember one day, last year, I remember, I went through a very difficult situation with my daughter, and I remember the pain was so like big, like seeing her suffer so much, that I even told God. I said, God, this is probably greater than my son's name is Gabriel. I said, than Gabriel, leaving us. I actually thank the Lord for taking him, because I'm sure he died really quick. I found him holding his chest. So he had like um a quick death. And and I work with special children. So, and I have worked with special adults too. And I just thank the Lord for not allowing him to survive whatever happened to him that night, because he probably would have been in a coma, or with a lot of disabilities, or mental issues. Who knows? Who knows what could have happened if God hadn't been merciful enough to take him so quick. The Lord, during my fasting, sometimes allow me to have dreams, and He also allowed me to see what was coming for my son in one of my dreams. But in that dream was also my dad, and my dad had passed many years ago, and I totally um, interpreted that as that my dad was needing help and was needing Gregorian masses. And I remember reaching out to Amandita to like help me with those masses for my dad. But I didn't think um, that what actually happened in that dream is what was gonna happen to me. Because in that dream, my dad entered my house, and my dad didn't say a word to me. It seems like he wasn't allowed to talk in that dream, but he went straight to where my son was resting, and he immediately took his pulse, and my son has no pulse. And I said to my dad, but dad, I don't understand. I've been here with him forever. It's been just the two of us in the house, and how come I hadn't realized? And that's exactly how it happened. That's exactly how my son's death happened. But like I said, I thought it was just my dad visiting me, asking me for masses, because he looked very pale, very sweaty, very tired in that dream. And he looked exhausted. My dad looked exhausted, and very pale and very sweaty. So when I went to confession and I shared that with the priest, he told me, that's how the souls in purgatory are. They're very tired. They're probably sweaty from the heat of the flames. So your daddy's asking you for masses, your daddy's asking you for help. And that was my whole interpretation. So going back to our visits to the cemetery to pray for the dead and to pray for the souls, I knew exactly what cemetery I didn't want to bury my son in, because none of the cemeteries that we have visited, I kind of didn't like him, didn't get a good feeling, and I found out why later. I like I said, I didn't know this because I hadn't visited any cemeteries before, except for maybe an occasional funeral, back when I was younger, and I don't even remember those places, but it's because they were not Catholic. That's why I didn't like him, but I didn't know why I didn't like him. And so when my son passed, my excuse me, my my therapist told me, um, if I knew where I wanted to bury my son. And then I said to her, yeah, in a Catholic cemetery. And she said, well, there is only one in Miami. So let's go there. And she took me there and she spent a couple of days with me, right when it happened. So the visits to pray for the souls prepare me to see like the cemeteries around Miami. And it's been 2 years. We just celebrated Gabriel's second anniversary last March 11th. And I, when I go to bring fresh flowers to his resting place, um, I feel stronger. I don't cry as much. I enter playing the Requiem um, with Father Claudio's voice, and I live singing them too. So it helps me to feel a lot stronger. It helps me to just be grateful for all the years that I had with him. And I just always thank God for all the love that that God gave me through my son. Because Gabriel was very loving. He was always genuine with his feelings, and he had a huge heart, and he was always worried about me, about my future, my well-being, my health. I remember the first time that I did St. Paul fasting. He told me, "Mom, you're gonna die, and it's a you. It's a you. You're looking for this. It's gonna be your fault. If you're gonna die, it's gonna be your fault." So I always remember, because those words came out of his love, because he was like very worried about me, about my health, because it's hard. It's hard to finish the fasting with the St. Paul for 3 days. But the Lord gave me at that time the strength to do it. And so I, thanks to, I think that fasting put us at a higher level, like spiritually, and not to have any pride, because we have to be careful not to fall into that. And I'm guilty of that sometimes, thinking, oh, I'm able to do this. I go to mass every day. I go to adoration several times a week. I go to confession often. Oh, I'm above, a spiritual level of my family. No, it's sometimes easy to fall into that, but the God keeps us in check, and he with the fasting, he keeps us humble enough to to remember where he got us from. And I remember, like, my past life, when I was single, and even during the years that I was married. um yes, I believed, but I was very like like a lukewarm Catholic, you know, not really trusting God and not really knowing our Catholic Church. And the more I know our Catholic Church, the more I fall in love with our faith, because no matter how much crisis we have right now, and no matter how much criticism there is, for the Catholic Church and for our Pope, I believe that this is actually the moment that we have to be strongest, and we have to defend our faith and show um, our love not only for God, but for those around us, so we can invite them with our testimony. So I, like, now that we visit, the homeless, um, and we've been doing it for, I don't know, maybe a few years, is the Lord puts in your heart like so much love and so much compassion for them, and that they're there for us. They're there to save us. They're there to help us be better people, and they're there to teach us many things. And so there is uh, a lot of growth in us, because of the fasting and and the understanding of those around us that are not so fortunate to have the gift of faith, to have the gift of compassion, and be more understanding of the needs of others, um, is is something that I feel that I have um, gotten stronger through the fasting. And every fasting is different, because like sometimes I truly feel in the desert, like, like, and I think, oh, I'm fasting, but I don't even want to pray. And it's like, sometimes the Lord send us like difficult times where we have to be very vigilant, because even we could be fasting, and we could take it as something routine because we've done it several times, several years, and piece of cake. But no, it's just kind of, you know um, being in touch with our faithful community, people from La Misión, and from my other ministries, is to kind of keep me in check, and to remember that this is so necessary right now, that our church is going through so much crisis, and there is so much need for love and for prayer and for compassion out there with our own families. Like my family in particular, they're they're very they're kind of distant from God. Like they see me now, they kind of left me alone, but at the beginning, I'm sure that there was a lot of criticism. I'm sure there was a lot of judging, um, but the Lord in me has shown them, um, like true faith, and like a true conversion. So now they kind of respect me and understand me a little more. And I have tons of nephews and nieces in Colombia, and I'm very close to most of them. And and they tell me nice things, like, oh, Tia, it's amazing how you've handled, Gabriel's death. You, um, you're not destroyed. You're actually full of joy. You're full of hope, and you're a true example to us. They tell me that my nieces, my nephews that are much younger than me. So I hope that the Lord keeps using my testimony to draw my family closer to God. And I've seen a few changes, because, like Father Ignacio Larrañaga says, in the world of God, is we take steps, not jumps. And so it's like little steps that we take. But I've seen little changes in my family, like they go to mass a little more now. They go sometimes on Sunday, not all of them, but like some of them, and they understand the importance of confession. I've taken a couple of my nieces to confession for the first time. I have, the Lord has convinced them to go, and they, I see a little bit more of faith growing in them little by little. My family is huge, and like in any huge family, gossip is very common. So now they know that, through the fasting and through the prayer, I avoid it a lot, or I stay silent, or I try to say something positive about that person that they're talking. So they're kind of careful right now not to do it in front of me. But it's kind of nice to see them, respecting me, and loving me and accepting me for whom the Lord has um, made in me. And and if anything, I just get a lot of love from them. And I think that's pretty much like a summary of where the Lord has taken me so far.